Alright, so we're going to go through how to get this guy set up. So I'm going to copy the link, I'm going to take it in here to my Gmail, or you don't have to use Chrome, but you do have to have a Google Drive set up. So we'll hit this guy. I suggest saving a copy in your drive. So we'll get rid of that guy. We'll work with the copy. You can name it whatever you want. Not really, not super important. But that way, if you change any of the settings down here, once you start to play with it, you can come back to them. The next thing that you're going to need to do is, so you got to create a folder in here called Gen with your training data. Easiest way to do that. So here's the link to the drive. I'm going to open that guy up. I would come up here and go download. So while it's doing that, we can, there we go. So name it whatever you like. You can actually name it Gen at this point if you would like. We're gonna show in the folder. You gotta extract. There we go. Gen Exbility data. Okay, so it's still doing that, but we'll get that window closed. You can close that one. We're done with Discord. This is your drive that you're going to be working out of. So drop that in there. You're just uploading the same shared folder. There's maybe an easier way to do that with G Drive. I'm not sure what it is. This is the way I had been doing it. Give it a minute. While it's doing that, you can actually get some of this started. So you're gonna have to mount it to your drive. Oh no! How is it that I've got too many sessions going on? I think I have that open in another. So if I terminate that, now it should let me get this guy running. So you're going to connect it to your Google Drive. Hit allow. Once it's connected there, you should have access to your files. This is just a little snippet of code so you can see which card you're running. This is a more beefy GPU than I think what is in my laptop, but an older architecture. Still pretty good though. This is going to install PyTorch. Actually, it doesn't. I don't think PyTorch is already on here. Honestly, this is just cloning the GitHub for the lightweight GAN. And then I don't even know if you really need Ninja. I may rip it out of there and see what happens. This is going to import all of your libraries from Python that you're going to need to run this code. It took a little bit to figure this out. If you do start playing around with GitHubs and stuff like that, you have to pull this out of. So like when I run this locally on my laptop, I don't have to do this, but you have to do it the way the notebook is set up. So here you've got a laundry list of like settings that you can play around with. Data, that needs to stay the same. That's going to map to that gen folder. If you do want to start naming it different stuff, that's fine, but if you want it to save everything in your drive versus, so it's set up like a local development environment on this cloud computer. When you terminate this session, everything that's on the cloud computer goes away. So you don't want that to happen, so you want to save it here in your drive, and so that's why the results are going. I've got that setting set up so your results get saved in your drive. Gradient accumulate. This is like a setting internal to the GAN. I don't totally understand what all the GAN settings do. This is your output image size. You can definitely beef this up and get higher resolution, but it tends to slow things down. Batch size also. What how many batches it's feeding to the GPU at once. You can go higher on this, but you do start to get memory limited. Discriminator output size, that is I believe the size of the grid of images that it's feeding back and forth between the GAN. This is mixed precision, so it runs a little bit easier. We don't need high precision for these GAN images. And then this is where you're going to basically set up how often it saves an image. So you can definitely take this down. You can take it down to 10. I'm actually going to do that so that maybe it will generate them fast enough that I can get all of this done. So before you do that though, or before you can run it, you need to make sure you have a gen folder. So right now it's named Higgs Belly Training Data. We're going to rename it to GEN. Okay, should be good there. You're already mapped to your drive. Should be able to see it over here now. This is your drive, my drive, gen, and that's got all of your PNGs in it. You can definitely use this to train GANs on other data. You're just going to need to kind of process them and make sure that they're the correct size and format. So, and then that's it. Hit roll. It takes a minute to kind of spin up and get everything started, and then it cranks them out relatively quickly. So, both these numbers are gonna need to be the same. For whatever reason, one of them, I think it's evaluate. If your evaluate is bigger than your save every, it's just gonna keep rolling. If for some reason between here and here you don't get things to run, I've got the show progress code right here, but it doesn't seem that you'll need that. So this will run until you've finished, and then it'll generate the progress images. If for some reason it kicks you off, you're probably going to have to start all over. There's a way to fix that. I just haven't done that yet. It has to do with saving I think they're called pickle files, or your model files. I'm going to have to figure out how to get those saved in a different location. And that's it. You got to let it run and do its thing. It's thinking probably about an hour and a half to get this done. So I'm not going to record an hour and a half long video. But I may try and get one clipped together. This is just a rough sort of get everybody started. So what will happen is it'll finish this out at about an hour and a half. It'll run this next line of code. That's going to generate all your progress images, and those are what make up the frame of the GIF. And then this little bit of code down here stitches it together as a GIF and does some nice blending for you at the end. And this will display it for you in the notebook, but you're going to want to come back and download that out of your drive. So you can let this run in the background, but it's going to periodically check to make sure that you're there. So all of us working from home, we can double dip a little bit. So these are what it's producing. Oh wow. Yeah. So we might get enough images here to make a decent GIF here pretty quickly. We'll see. And then this actually represents thousands of images. I'm not sure what the counter is for. Normally it's at like 150, but at 150 you're generating a GAN that looks exactly like pixel per pixel what the training data looked like. I'd also say that if you're going to try and use this to make your own GANs, less is more. I've been training it on like 200 images of cryptodes and stuff like that, and honestly I'm going to regenerate some data and drop it down to like 100. What you're trying to get is like a little bit more variation. It also runs quicker with fewer images. So when you when Pender starts to release more of the training data and you're like curating, the GANs that you want to feed into it, try to pick, around 100, and that seems to give some of the best results. So you can even look in here at results, and it should have. We've let it run for a little bit. We've definitely got enough images to build a GIF off of these guys. What I'm going to do is, so if at any time you realize you've mucked something up or you want to stop this, you can just hit stop. It's still going to run this next little bit of code. But if you just let it run and do its thing, it'll only run for 4,000 training steps. So, and it'll run the progress part. So the important thing to remember is you're setting up like a temporary development environment. So all this stuff gets saved in results. If you run through these two, you can always run down here. But if it stops in the middle of here and you needed it to run longer, you have to start within the same session. It'll start back up though. But if you terminate the session, then you've lost your model. So it loses the model file and you've got to start from scratch. So we're going to hit stop. It's still going to run this little bit of code. It's running down here, generating the GANs. It's got to fire that GPU back up. This is going to actually compile all of your image data, and I'll come back here and I'll show you that you can actually make different GANs from this same training data. Give it a minute. It's got 70 something images to go through, so it takes a little bit. Okay, so that's run. Now you have this folder called BitGAN Progress. These are all of the JPEGs of everything that it's done. So notice it only makes about 8 of them. So then what you're going to do is, this is only, I should just take this out. It's commented out, so even if you run it, it shouldn't do anything. This is just that same show progress bit of code with a little bit of an explanation. It used to live down here, but I threw it up here just out of fear that if you were letting it run and then you forgot to run this, you'd have to start over if it terminated in between there. So then this is going to actually build your GIF from those files that it generated, and if you hit this guy, it'll load it for you, and you can see in the actual notebook what you made. So it does a little bit of post-processing. So this one's running way slower because I took and I saved it every 10 instead of every 50. And you can see we were just barely starting to get some GANs over there. But pretty cool. This is where I started trying to make a GAN. This is what you're running, and this is where I started messing with GPUs back in 2010.